The last cave lion, Panthera died around 12,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. But before this, lions were widespread across Europe. You can find their bones in caves all over France and Spain. And these two skulls are from the famous Chauvet Cave, which is also home to some of the oldest cave paintings in the world. The Chauvet Cave has preserved the bones of hundreds of animals, including woolly mammoths, cave bears, and reindeer, along with numerous lions. The sheer number of lions among these ancient remains suggests just how important they were to our ancestors' daily lives. So today we will try to answer why there were so many lions in Europe. For our story to make sense, we have to go back in time. About 40,000 years ago, it was the middle of the last ice age. Most of Europe was covered in thick ice, but the southern half of the continent had a Mediterranean climate similar to what you would find today in North Africa or the southern uses, in fact. Some scientists believe that this region was a refuge for many species, including humans, who sought shelter from the harsh cold further north. There is a theory that modern humans evolved in this area and then spread out across the planet after the ice melted. Now, the Mediterranean part of Europe was full of prey animals such as deer, wild cattle, and pigs, which is why it is not surprising that some of the largest predators in the world chose to live here. Between 40,000 and 14,000 years ago, big cats roamed across the entire continent. You may be familiar with some of them: Panthera leo, the lion; Panthera pardus, the leopard; Panthera onca, the jaguar. But there were also other types of big cats, such as the American lion, Panthera atrox, and the cave lion, Panthera leospilea. This last one looks very similar to today's African lion, but it was bigger. The males weighed up to 330 kilograms and females up to 250 kilograms. That's 30 kilograms heavier than today's Siberian tigers, which are already pretty massive. We don't know exactly when these cats arrived in Europe, but fossil evidence suggests that they lived there for at least 500,000 years. What we do know is that they went extinct sometime between 12,000 and 8,000 years ago. But why? Well, according to some scientists, it was because of us. Humans started hunting lions, and eventually we won. We hunted them inside caves and with spears, arrows, and traps. And maybe we even trained some of them to fight in the Roman Colosseum. But there's another explanation for their extinction, and it doesn't involve humans at all. It says that big cats went extinct naturally because of climate change. As the ice sheets moved south, the Mediterranean climate disappeared, and with it, most of the big cats left Europe or died out. But let's get back to the lions. Their remains have been found all over the continent, in Britain, Germany, France, Spain, Italy, Greece, Bulgaria, and more. But they were especially common in Greece. And I think it is safe to say that they were native there because ancient Greek writers often mentioned them in their works. For example, in his book Historia Animalium, written in the 4th century BCE, the philosopher Aristotle described several different types of lions. He said that in Libya, where today's Barbary lion lives, female lions were kept as pets and used for hunting wild boars. And he also described a gigantic lion-like creature with wings that lived near the Caucasus Mountains. It might have been a griffin, but it might have also been a hyena. Anyway, Aristotle wasn't the only one fascinated by lions. Another famous Greek writer, Herodotus, mentioned them many times in his book, The Histories. He said that Scythians kept tame lions as war companions, and that the Nori, an ancient people who lived somewhere in Europe, had lion-shaped shields. In fact, there is an old legend that says Perseus killed a giant lion while he was traveling through the land of the Nuri. And if you want to hear that story, I highly recommend checking out the first episode of our podcast, which you can find on our website. But back to lions. Unfortunately, we don't have much evidence of their presence in Greece today. Most of their bones either didn't survive or they were simply lost during the many wars and invasions that Greece suffered throughout history. However, in 1996, a lion skull was discovered in the Sesklo settlement. And this is interesting because Sesklo is one of the oldest known archaeological sites in the Balkans. It dates back to 7000 BC, which means that lions lived in Greece at the same time as the first farmers. Okay, but why did they become extinct? Some scientists say that climate change was the reason. After all, when the Mediterranean climate disappeared, so did the prey animals. And without wild cattle, deer, and pigs, lions couldn't survive. But there's another theory. It says that when humans migrated into Greece, lions were already endangered and we were the ones who pushed them off the edge. One piece of evidence that supports this idea is that lions became extinct at roughly the same time that humans arrived in Greece. Another piece of evidence is that the earliest cave paintings in Greece, which date back to around 6500 BCE, depict goats and deer, animals that lions would not hunt. Basically, the argument goes that if lions still lived among humans, we would have painted them as predators, but we didn't. But keep in mind that both theories could be correct. Maybe lions went extinct because of multiple factors. Maybe the disappearance of the Mediterranean climate weakened them and made them more vulnerable, and then we finished them off. And speaking of ancient Greek people and lions, there's a story that I simply had to tell you about. According to Homer, the famous poet who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey, the Greek hero Perseus killed a lion while he was traveling through the land of the Nori. And if you want to hear that story, I highly recommend checking out the first episode of our podcast, which you can find on our website. Thank you so much for watching. We have lots of videos coming up about prehistoric animals, so stay tuned if you don't want to miss them. I also have a personal goal to reach 100,000 subscribers. It's a big goal, and I know that we can reach it together. So if you enjoy what I do and you want to help me reach this goal, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. In the meantime, I'm going to keep searching for answers. Why were there so many lions in Europe? Why did they become extinct? And what was the relationship between humans and lions? If you have any theories, please let me know in the comments below. And until next time, happy hunting.